I always think of my work as having flipped a question. The predominant question that's in the literature is, what's wrong with these children? Now, it might not be phrased that way, but that's essentially what they're saying. What's the matter with these kids? Why can't they learn? Why can't they achieve? And we've often put it either at the children's cognitive ability, we put it at their parents' parenting ability, we put it at their culture and their communities. And I decided to take that question and ask, well, what's right with them? And what happens in a classroom where they and their teachers and their parents and the community get it right? So I think that's what I think of as my primary work, trying to make sense of what it is that young people bring, particularly African Americans, bring to schooling and education experiences. Well, I think some of the things that they bring in right is a sense of what Thomas Lightfoot used to call humanely equitable relationships. In other words, there's no big I's and little U's, that their relationship with each other and with the adults is that we are all human in this environment. And I think they get that from communities, in very traditional African American communities. Stuff is intergenerational, right? So just because you're 8 doesn't mean you can't help Big Mama cook this, right? Just because you're 12 doesn't mean you can't sit at the spades table. It's so that learning to be humanely equitable is something that they bring to a classroom that is typically a hierarchical classroom, where the teacher's like, I'm the authority and you just have to listen to me. I think another thing that they bring is a kind of flexibility around all kinds of things that tend to be structured in school. So flexibility around time, flexibility around knowledge. In other words, just because this is in math doesn't mean I can't think about this in science or in English. So they are not as wedded to these sort of rigid structures. I think they also help teachers understand the various ways in which it's okay to operate, right? In other words, you don't have to just do things one certain way. I remember some research that I believe Lisa Delpit had done that looked at what happens, actually looked at the prevailing research that suggested that, these Black families don't have enough toys, right? But once we looked inside of that assertion, here's what we found. They had toys. The toys was in the playpen because we don't put the baby in the playpen. We hold the baby. The baby is never put down. So that baby raised in that way shows up in school not linked to objects like toys, but linked to people. And that ability to connect with people is, I think, a very, very powerful and useful way for our young people to become more successful. It's like, what's the nature of the relationship I'm able to establish with people? So that's why you get kids who'll say things to their teacher. The teacher may be walking in a building and the kids say things like, I did your homework, okay? It's not actually her homework. It's their homework, but because of my relationship with you, I did it. Well, again, like anything that has to do with Black people in the United States, is complex. Part of it, I think, is the expectation that they would be academically successful. It's just not there. I do a lot of professional development with teachers, and I will ask the question of them, which cultural subgroup is the best performing group in U.S. schools? And I get some very typical responses. In general, people will say, well, Asian students. Okay, some of them will be more specific. Oh, Chinese American students, or they may say, I don't know, Filipino students. And I let them, we go through all the suggestions that they have, and then I kind of hit them with a visual. And all the students are Black. They're all Nigerian Americans. As a group, they are the best performers. So then I say to them, why don't they come to mind for you? So that has to do with the expectation. So I think over the last several years, among students who have been admitted to all 8 Ivy League campuses, they've all been Nigerian American. So it isn't so much a, quote, racial bullet here, right? It's not about DNA. It is often about the expectation. And so the environment that we have set for African American students is you'll only do certain things. You'll be good in sports, you'll be good in performing, but you won't be good in STEM things. You won't be good in science and mathematics or those kinds of things. And so I think that we've set such a low bar that people are literally getting what they expect. I think linked to that is the resources that are available. You see the quality of the schools that our students go to. You see the level of preparation of their teachers. Black students are much more likely to have an underqualified or unqualified teacher in the areas of mathematics and science. So the idea that they don't even have access to some of the basic curricula is another piece of it. And then I also think that I think many of our kids are just so disaffected by the way schools operate.